You know George Washington, right? First president, crossing the Delaware, cherry tree legend. But do you know who helped set the stage for all that? That's right, George's older brother, Lawrence Washington. The guy who's basically the unsung hero behind George's rise to the top. So let's get into it, because Lawrence's story is a mix of ambition, military service, and honestly, some pretty cheeky antics. Lawrence Washington, born in 1709, was the eldest son of Augustine Washington and his first wife, Jane Ball. While George was off becoming the face of America, Lawrence was already busy doing his thing: military service, land ownership, and cultivating a flair for the dramatic. Lawrence served in the British Navy during the War of Austrian Succession and later joined the Virginia Colonial Militia during the French and Indian War. Spoiler alert, George, watching all this, thought, "Yeah, that looks good," and followed in Lawrence's military footsteps, eventually leading the Continental Army to victory in the American Revolution. Talk about setting a high bar, right? Lawrence's service was the blueprint that George would later build his entire military career on. Now, after their dad died in 1743, Lawrence stepped into the role of father figure for young George. At just 11 years old, George became a ward of Lawrence and his wife Anne, and it's clear that Lawrence's influence helped shape George into the man he would become. But it wasn't just about advice and wisdom. Lawrence owned a ton of land, including the famous Mount Vernon estate. The estate's ownership was meant to pass to George, but it wasn't until Lawrence's untimely death from tuberculosis in 1752 that the transition of Mount Vernon to George became a reality. At just 20 years old, George inherited the estate, which would become not only his home, but the springboard for his future endeavors, teaching him the valuable skills of leadership, property management, and diplomacy that would come in handy later in his life. While George was known for his stoicism and practicality, Lawrence had a personality that was far more flamboyant and eccentric. He was known for his wild sense of humor and extravagant fashion choices. Think powdered wigs, fancy coats, the whole deal. He was not the kind of guy to blend in at a colonial dinner party. In fact, Lawrence tried to play the game of British aristocracy when he visited London in the mid-1750s, hoping to elevate his family's social standing. His mission? To get his name associated with British nobility. Did it work? Not really, but it did make for some great gossip among Virginians. In the end, Lawrence Washington may not have gotten the fame his little brother did, but his role in shaping George, and by extension American history, cannot be ignored. Lawrence Washington's life might not have been as long or as widely celebrated as his younger brother's, but it was undeniably significant. Lawrence was the one who taught George about military leadership, land management, and, whether he liked it or not, how to deal with the political games of colonial America. His legacy? It's woven into the story of the Washington family's success, and let's face it, without him, George might have had to wait a little longer to become the first president. So here's to Lawrence, the unsung hero of the Washington family. And if you want more untold stories like this, don't forget to hit subscribe and check out The Buck Starts Here, where we dive into the lives and legacies that shaped America. Because, trust me, history's got way more surprises than you think.